Hi, welcome back to the Quick Start Guide. Let's build something. Start up your personal use license image, which we're looking at right here. And if you haven't already, so I named mine Test, but if you're starting up the Visual NC, you want to come in and save the image and say type in Test, because the Visual NC you want to leave unchanged. So you'll save that. In my case, I've already got one. I can replace it. This basically keeps a snapshot of all the work I've done in its own contained image, and it saves the state of all my work. So if, say, you're a gamer and you're in the middle of a game and you just want to stop and save the game, and basically exactly where you are with all the current state and status and where you are and what you're doing. This works similarly. It saves the state of where you are, and you can come right back to where you've left off. So the first thing we want to do here is we want to go to something called a browser. This is the system browser. If you hover over it, says open a system browser. This is where you spend most of your time in development. On the left here, we have a list of packages. So it'll be packages, classes, protocols, methods. So basically, I'm going to show you what you do and explain the things as I go. So we want to create a package. A package holds related classes. So let's create a new package, and we're going to create a customer class. So we'll call this customer quick start. Okay, now I've got a package. In this package here, now this will be classes, and I'm right clicking here, create new class, and we're going to call this customer. The superclass is, we can change that, but this is fine for what we want to do. Instance variables. Okay, these are the variables that an instance of customer will have. So I want to say we have customer name, customer ID, and customer phone. I can leave this. I'll show you what that does. Say OK. And what I have is ways to get and set the customer ID. So if I have an instance of this object and I say, hey, I want your customer ID, I send it this message, and it gives me, this says return the customer ID. So this is called, in the vernacular, it's called a getter, and this is a setter, because we say, hey, your customer ID is this, and it sets, remember this is : is assignment, it sets the customer ID to this. So it generated these getters and setters, and also an initialize method. The initialize method just sets these to nil and returns myself. And actually, I could get rid of this. The result would be the same, because the default object that you get back is that object that you're talking to, unless it's something different returned from that. So again, packages, which are a grouping of classes, related classes. We have one class here. Protocols, which is a grouping of related methods. Again, these are methods. A method is the equivalent of a function or procedure in a traditional language. So we're kind of set up here now with a customer class. Now in a class, remember, we have two sides to that class. We have the instance. So here I'm showing the protocol for how to talk to an instance of a customer. If I click on class, I'm talking to the customer factory, so to speak, and I can say, give me a new customer. And in that I could create new protocol for, say, giving the customer the name, ID, and phone in one message, one keyword message. What would that look like? Let me just copy these. I'll go to instance creation, highlight this. I'm going to say Control V and say customer name. I'm going to say name string, customer ID, ID number, and customer phone, phone string, so I can kind of identify what I am, what type of object I'm talking to. And then I might say, let's see, new customer gets self new. Next line, new customer. Notice it puts that in for me. I can just tab to select that. I'm actually going to do a little shortcut I'll show you. See. Then the customer name. Let's see, I'm going to do something called a cascade. So I want to send 3 messages to new customer. I want to say customer name is this, semicolon. Customer ID is this, semicolon. Customer phone is this. So a semicolon simply means allows me to send another message to the same object. So I'm creating a new empty customer. Then I'm sending the message customer name, and then customer ID, and then customer phone to that. And then the important thing is we want to return, tab the new customer. Now I can do 2 things. I can do Control S or accept, which is the same as Control S. Now watch what happens when I do this. Oh, it's telling me there's a syntax error, and I can see what the issue is. I forgot a period right here. I type in the period. Let's try that again. Accept. It says, hey, this new customer, this is something I don't recognize. What is it? And we want this to be a temporary variable that we're just using temporarily. So between the vertical bars is a declaration for a temporary variable. These are 3 messages that I can send to an instance: customer ID, customer name, customer phone. Okay. So let's try this out. How can I try this out? Let's come down here and I'll open up a workspace. In this, I usually like to do style of Smalltalk because then I get the autocomplete. I'm going to say customer, tab for that autocomplete. Oh, look at this. Okay, I want that. So it gives me name string. I'm going to put a string, single quotes. Notice I backspace to get rid of the temporary in brackets. I typed in a single quote, which gives me the quotes, the match quotes, and puts me in the middle to create a string. I will say Fred Jones is the name. I'm going to tab. Notice where it takes me. Customer ID. I'm going to say the customer ID is, I'm just starting to type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to tab, and then the phone string, single quote, 555 1212. Okay, so I've got that. I'm sending this keyword message to customer class. Remember the customer factory. So let's see how this works. I'm going to highlight this. Now I could do it. I could do it and get the results and print them. I could do it, get the results, and inspect it. But I'm going to choose debug. What this will do is allow me to step interactively through the code. Now this means step into, step, which executes it, and this is generally used for for iteration, to step over the iteration, to get it all done in one shot. We're going to step into this. Here we are in that code, self new. So let me execute self new and see what I've got. What do I have? I've got a new customer. Let me look at that. I double click on it and it shows me I've got a customer. It says a customer, customer ID, name, and phone are nil. Okay, this is an inspector. Let's give new customer, let me step into it. Customer name is Fred Jones. I can even look right here in the instance. Step it in that. Okay, now my customer has a name, no ID or phone yet. Step, so I'm back out. Give it an ID number and give it the phone string. And I can see the temporary, the variables right here that I'm passing in the parameters, name string, ID number, and phone string, and my new customer, instance variable, not instance variable, temporary variable. And at any time, let me execute that third one. I can look at that new customer. Now I've got a customer, ID, name, and phone. And then I return that new customer. That means I'll be getting that as the result of this. So if I do this again and inspect it, I've got this customer. Let's look at another. This just says a customer. Well, that's not too helpful. Let's look at another standard. Let's go to the instance side because it's how I want this to behave. And there's a protocol called printing. And I can say print on a stream. And I can say, the first thing I say is super. Let me run my inherited code. And what that generally does is puts the name of the class on that. So let's see if I inspect this. Okay, that's the default behavior. But we want to add more. Then I want to say a stream. And the stream understands a stream behavior. And I can say to a stream, next put all self customer name. And in case it was nil, let me say customer name print string so I don't get an error. I'm going to save that. Now let's inspect this and look at that. Oh, look at that. I could use a space there. A stream space. Inspect that. Okay, now if I ever look at self for this customer, or say I'm looking at a list of customers, it tells me which one this is, Fred Jones. And I could also add the ID and the phone number, or just the ID, basically whatever I want when I'm looking at that object. We can see this is a small integer. We can see this is a byte string, and I can look at each character in that. This is backup. This is also a string. If I wanted to see the customer behavior, I can go to Object, Browse, and it will take me right to that customer class. So I can see all the messages that I can send to that customer. So what have we done? We've come into our image. We've looked at remember we came right here to open up a browser. Then we created a new package right here, Customer Quick Start. We have a class right here. Let's take a look at that. It shows me the definition of the class, where it inherits from, object. The instance variables, if I create an instance of a customer, These are the variables that it will have. We can also go to the class side right up here, and this shows me the factory behavior for creating customers. So I can say new. Well, we didn't do that. Let's go right here. I'm going to type in a period so this doesn't. I can say customer new, period. I can inspect that. I get a new empty customer. So I could say right here, say cust, and I can declare cust, but actually what I'm going to do is show you something else in a workspace. Let me execute this. Cust is now, it created a customer right here to save me the time of declaring those variables. This just makes it easy to test things out. So then I can say cust, and I could say one at a time. I could say the name is Fred Jones. So again, I can let me highlight this and do it. Another thing you can do is if you have the cursor at the end, you can do it same as highlighting all of this. And then if I go, let me double click on this and say inspect right there, and I can see my customer has a name. Still no ID or phone. All I did was give it the name right here. So I could also say customer ID 54321 to make it different. I can have the cursor there. I can do it. I can inspect. This is the inspect. So I can right click and say inspect, or I can just click on this right here. And now I have an ID and a customer name, no phone. And finally, if I copy this and say customer phone 123 9876. Let's do that. And I can click on any of these and just say inspect that. And I have the ID, the name, and the phone that I've given that customer in this inspector. So this is an object inspector. So, browser, we notice that the class and the methods here are real things, and these are for organization. So this is groups of classes and groups of methods. Okay, for organization, which Smalltalk is really good at. So we walked through the browser, we built a customer class, we created customer instances, and we've looked at them. So this was to kind of give you a little feeling for how to use the tools. Now this right here says save. I'm going to save this image. I can now close it, exit, save it. I can say, well, I can say yes, I already have. I could say no. Either of those is fine. Then when I restart my image, it saved all the state. Again, it's like if you're doing this long game and you want to stop in the middle of it, you have to go dinner time. You want to save exactly where you are, what you're doing. This saved everything right here. And we'll talk afterwards other ways to save the work so you could start over again if you needed to. Okay, so this is the Smalltalk quick start, building a customer class, inspecting the customer object, populating the customer object. If you have any questions, feedback, my name is Arden Thomas. Thomas at Cincom.com. Thank you.